This session is part of a webinar series which aims to assist researchers, librarians, and institutions in the adoption of digital tools and persistent identifiers for a significant increase of research discoverability globally and to increase efficiency in scholarly workflows.
All right, so thank you all for joining us today. We are starting right away. So I want to welcome you all to our webinar series on open science for the discoverability of African research. My name is Ebuka Ezike, and I'm the project manager at AfricaConnect. So for those of you who are getting to hear about AfricaConnect for the first time, AfricaConnect is a community-led digital archive for African research communication. And by enhancing the visibility of African research, we enable discoverability and collaboration opportunities for African scientists on the continent as well as globally. So today we welcome our speaker, Dr. Angelique Trusler from the Carpentries. And she will be speaking on the topic, empowering African researchers, building data and coding skills with the Carpentries. Before we listen to what she has for us today, here's a little about Dr. Angelique Trusler. So Dr. Angelique Trusler, with a Ph.D. in educational psychology, is the community manager at the Carpentries in Africa and a researcher at Northwest University in South Africa. She leads efforts to enhance researchers' data science skills across Africa, organizing workshops and training programs. And then under her leadership, the Carpentries in Africa has grown significantly, hosting over 200 workshops and certifying more than 160 instructors. Dr. Trusler also spearheaded translating a computing glossary into 7 African languages, including Afrikaans, Setswana, isiXhosa, isiZulu, Amharic, Kiswahili, and Southern Sotho. And she also hosted a major virtual event, that is the CarpentryConnect South Africa in the year 2021. And then that event had over participants joining from over 28 countries. So she's passionate about open science and she collaborates with researchers to improve data science education and research, aiming for universal access to these crucial skills. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. And now over to our speaker, Dr. Angelique Trusler.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. I'm calling in from Johannesburg, South Africa. It is a beautiful, I want to say spring, almost summer day. So I'm glad to be spending at least this hour with you to tell you more about my role as community manager at the Carpentries and what we do in Africa to promote and empower African researchers in data science and coding skills. Right. So you will have access to the slide deck that I'm going to present at the moment. So you don't need to take any notes. Sit back, think of questions you might want to ask me because I'm going to be sharing a lot of resources with you very soon. Right, so let's get on. So first of all, I want to share a summary of what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Carpentries, who we are and what we do. I want to start by chatting about how you can start your data and coding skills journey. So not necessarily with the Carpentries, but with our resources I'm going to share with you today. How can you get involved in the Carpentries? And we'll leave some time for questions you might have. And I know everyone in the room is interested in this topic. So I really hope I can be a resource for you walking away from this session today. So first of all, the Carpentries is a not-for-profit project, and we based in the US, but all core team members are scattered over the globe. We have 2 core team members in South Africa, Johannesburg, coincidentally, 1 in Germany, 1 in the United Kingdom, and the rest based and scattered all over the US. So we're a global volunteer community of learners, lesson developers, trainers, instructors, and maintainers. I can go on. It's community driven, are not for profit. And we're very grateful for what our community brings to the table every single day. We teach foundational coding and data science skills to researchers like you in the room worldwide. And I'm going to chat about what type of programming we use in a little bit. And all of our lessons falls under the Creative Commons licensing. And that means it's free to use. And since these lessons and workshop curricula are developed by community members, all we ask is that you acknowledge the hard work the community members put into the lesson. So it's free for you to use, just saying we are grateful to the community members of the Carpentries for creating the content. And lastly, but definitely not least, we build community and local capacity for teaching and learning. And that's where my journey with the Carpentries started. I became an instructor at the Carpentries during my postdoc year in 2017. And I started teaching R and using R Studio. And in 2019, I joined them as the regional consultant at the Carpentries, where I was focusing more on Southern Africa and community building. I got, I want to say promoted, but it was a natural segue into becoming the African Capacity Development Manager. So we grew from Southern Africa to Africa. We saw the need was so great for more support. And now I'm the community manager of the Carpentries. However, I have a very, very special place in my heart for Africa, being African, studying in Africa, and I communicate with African researchers like you every day. So it's my pleasure to come and tell you more about what we do and how I can help you with your journey in data science and programming. So let's quickly pop on. So I spoke about workshops, and we host these workshops. You might ask now, Angelique, what does this look like? So let me tell you a bit more about that. So our workshops are taught by volunteer instructors. These are individuals who go for instructor training, and I'll chat about what does that entail a bit later in the presentation today. So we have volunteer instructors, both in person and online, and alongside helpers, which don't necessarily have to be certified Carpentries instructors. And they use the Carpentries lessons that our community developed to teach these foundational skills and perspectives. You can see a picture there. This is pre-COVID times when we hosted Carpentries workshops. And this is what a typical in-person workshop would look like. Online workshop is very much what you are seeing now at the moment, just not the coding part, right? So let's hop on. What might you learn at a workshop? So there's two main things I want to chat to you about today: software development practices and data analysis and research practices. And now I'm getting to the stuff you're all interested in, right? So with software development practices, automating repetitive tasks. We want to make it easier for you. And as a researcher, I found coding basic things the whole time from scratch takes time, and it leaves chance for error, right? And comparing results then is not necessarily doable. Transforming step-by-step workflows into scripts or functions. Those of you in the room who might be into genomics might know exactly what I'm talking about. When you run your sequencing analysis and you have workflows in Jupyter Notebook maybe, etc. This is definitely where we want to help you. And using version control. We make use a lot of GitHub, where our own website at the Carpentries is hosted via GitHub. And it is very difficult with using version control to break the website, because you can always roll it back. And that is what we try and enable our learners to learn when doing research. So nothing's lost. Data analysis and research practices, right? How do you repeat analysis, but also keeping in mind repetitive tasks? How can we incorporate that? Developing a data management and analysis plan, how to put that out so you have a roadmap going ahead with your analysis for whatever discipline you are in. Improving data management and project organization. using a programming language, for instance, R or Python. I'll chat a bit more about that, I think, in the next slide. Not sure. And how to reuse your code. So these are, I want to say on a very high level, what we aim to teach. And we'll get to the different curriculum in a bit, and I want to showcase the hard work of our community members then. There we go. This is the slide I wanted to see. Typical software that you would encounter is open source at the Carpentries. So you'll see R, and then with RStudio, OpenRefine. I'm not sure those of you in the room might not know what OpenRefine is all about. OpenRefine is an amazing tool, not just for qualitative research, but for quantitative research as well. It helps you clean up messy data. It helps you see a bird's overview of what's going in your data. And there's a lot of powerful tools like facets. I wish I could get into the nitty-gritty, but you'll get me stuck here for 3 hours, right, if I have to jump into this. But OpenRefine is a free tool. It runs through your browser, and it's amazing in cleaning your data. Then Python, Git. We make use of Amazon web instances for our genomics lessons. Anaconda, and there's many more. I can go on and on. We, instead of using a paid version of Excel, there are OpenLibre, which is a very, very strong spreadsheets program that's free to use for anyone. So let's hop along. Now this is where you're going to see me smile very brightly and broadly, because this is just my absolute passion as the Carpentries in Africa, but more so bringing data science and programming to the continent. So it's my pleasure to tell you more about that right now. Thank you so much, Ebuka, for the great introduction about what we do at the Carpentries, but I got updated stats for you, and I have to boast. We now have 169 instructors trained, and probably another 20 going through instructor checkout at the moment. So I'm hoping in the next 6 months, we will cross the 200 certified instructor mark, and that's just amazing. We have hosted more than 205 workshops on the continent since 2013. We have 3 member organizations, 2 from South Africa and 1 from Namibia. 8 active trainers. These are individuals who train instructors. I'll have a picture for you later just to explain how the I'm going to say the organogram looks like. These trainers are based in Ethiopia and in South Africa. And the 7 African language and glossario. That's absolutely, if someone has to tell me what's your highlight of the year, this is it. We got funding from the Mellon Foundation to upscale glossario. And you're going to say, Angelique, what is glossario? So glossario is a multilingual online dictionary where we have English, data science, and programming terms, and we are constantly translating it. At the moment, overall, it's 26 languages we are translating it into, and 7 of those are African languages and growing by the month. So we just ended our, I want to say our 2024 Code Fest Hackathon, but we are going to be hosting bi-monthly translation efforts. So have a look at the slides afterwards, join some of our sessions, come see if you would like to join the effort in translating these terms, because I'm a second language English speaker and I wish I had Afrikaans terms and statistics and data science when I first initially started my journey with coding. It would have made on a fundamental level such a big difference. And if we can make it easier for the generations after us, then I think, we have done our bit for society in a sense. But let's hop on. Here is a R-generated map of the distribution of all the instructors in Africa. So you can see on the south, we have South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and then in the east, we have Kenya. Oh, there's so many there. Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, we have Nigeria, we have Morocco, Tunisia, right? So that's just amazing. It's literally all 4 corners of Africa, if you can say that, we have instructors. Now, what do we do I'm talking about, we have all these instructors and we have all these workshops we are running, but what community is there? But every fourth Thursday of the month, we have an African Carpentries community meetup, and we have topics of the month. And some of the topics are inviting speakers from other like-minded organizations like Open Life Science. We have networking opportunities where we play online games like Get to Know Your African Flag, very popular. And the competitive side of our community members come out when we put them in breakout rooms. They absolutely love that. But what we also focus on is mentoring for instructors and helpers before a workshop. So if you are a certified instructor at the Carpentries and you want to host your own workshop at your institution, but you are not certain how to do it, or you have some questions, this would be the opportunity for you to come sit and ask experienced instructors. You can have a look at the link here. This is our Cody MD page, our collaborative document. If you want to see what type of topics we chat about, if you want to fall into the next Carpentries meetup and see what we do there, you are more than welcome to do so. Right, now we're getting to what many of you are here today for. Hopefully you enjoyed the Carpentries in Africa, but it's more than a pleasure for me to explain to you how to start your data and coding skills journey. Now, we're going to stick here to this page for a little bit. The Carpentries consist of previously 3 projects. It was data carpentry, library carpentry, and software carpentry. They were all separate entities, and then they came together as the Carpentries. But these now form our core curricula at the Carpentries. We have data carpentry, which is very much focused on specific disciplines. You'll see ecology, genomics, geospatial, social sciences, and they focus on how to manipulate a data set using R, Python, spreadsheets, OpenRefine, SQL, these languages, right? Then moving on to library carpentry. These workshops are intended for people who work in libraries and information sciences, and it helps them help other researchers learn how to work with the data and data structures best using regular expressions. And the the languages covered in these, I want to say, section of the Carpentries curricula, Unix Shell, OpenRefine, and Git. And then we have software carpentry. Software carpentries is you want to manipulate a software to work for you in analyzing your data. So this is different from data carpentry. Data carpentry is like, let's discriminate the data we have. Software carpentry says, okay, here's the software, but how can I manipulate the software to get where I want to be? The lessons here are not discipline specific, but they're more how can I say, software specific. So we have plotting and programming in Python, programming with R, and R for reproducible scientific analysis. Now, what I would like to go here is go to the data carpentry ecology lesson, and let's look at what this typical lesson consists of. And it will give you a broad idea what these other lessons might help you with. So the Carpentries curriculum, like I said, is developed and maintained by Carpentries community members globally. The ecology lesson is very close to my heart because it's a lesson that I teach. Ibuka, can you just give me a thumbs up if you see the new screen in front of you now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfectly right. So here is a page with all our lessons. And I just wanted to bring you here so you can see it's a one-stop shop with all the lessons we have that I showed you in the previous slide. But let's go to ecology. And I was saying that this is very close to my heart. It's one of the first lessons I taught as an instructor, and I would love to showcase this to you. So let's quickly go to the lesson. So the ecology curriculum is now where we have an ecology data set, and we want to discriminate the data, right? Because we're looking at data carpentry here. So I want to read what we are seeing on the screen here. This workshop uses a tabular ecology data set from the Portal Project Teaching Database and teaches data cleaning, management, analysis, and visualization. There are no prerequisites, and the materials assume no prior knowledge about the tools. And this is what we want, right? We want to learn from the ground level up. We use a single data set throughout the workshop to model the data management and analysis workflow that a researcher would use. So you can see it starts with an ecology workshop overview. Some of the sections could be, let's look at spreadsheets. Let's look at data cleaning in OpenRefine. Let's look at data management in SQL, data analysis and visualization for R. And here you see data analysis and visualization in Python. So this is now very nice that this lesson traditionally was an R lesson. And then our community members came together and they said, what about if people want to analyze their data in Python? And this came a part of that. But let's have a look where they say the overview. And now you're going to see our fancy new template that was developed by Jiam Kamba. It's called the Workbench. And we're very proud. It looks very pretty and it's accessible, which is very important. The colors are accessible for screen readers, for those individuals who make use of that. The contrast is also acceptable according to various tests. So I'm very proud to showcase this to you today. Oh, now I'm seeing my, let's just do this so we can hide that awesomeness. So getting started, they tell us about Data Carpentries teaching is hands-on. So participants are encouraged to use their own computers to ensure the proper setup of tools for an efficient workflow. The most effective use of these materials, please make sure to download the data and install everything before working through this lesson. So if we go down here by the second blue tick, you can go download the data here. The data is open data. You can download it and it's free for use. If you go more down, the workshop overview, you see the overview that I shared with you earlier. Data organization and spreadsheet. So here you will learn how to organize tabular data, handle date formatting, carry out quality control, very important, right? Quality control is essential, especially when you work with survey data. Maybe those of you in the room who have had survey data you have to capture, mistakes creep in really, really easily. So quality control and quality assurance and export data. And then it takes us to the next step, data cleaning with OpenRefine. So now we have our data, we did the quality control and spreadsheets, and now we're going to the next step. We're going to explore the data, we're going to summarize the data, and we're going to clean up tabular data before we go to R or Python. So you will see the data analysis can be in either in R or in Python. And then we're looking at importing data, calculating summary statistics, and creating publication quality graphics. And this is the same for Python. So it kind of splits there. It splits to R or Python. And then lastly, data management. How do you structure data for database import? Query data with a relational database. So this is a very brief overview of what one of our lessons look like. But I hope I could showcase for you the logical flow that this lesson takes. It takes you from, okay, I have this data. I need to figure out in spreadsheets what to do with it. You know, how can I change the dates that's readable, etc. So you have a spreadsheet and it moves on to OpenRefine, where I clean my data, I get it ready for analysis, right? And then we go into R or Python, and this is where the magic happens. The magic happens, you learn how to summarize, or to apply summary statistics, apologies, how to discriminate the data, and more so, create high quality publication ready visualizations. I want to go back quickly to the other lessons. Let me go back here. And, oh, Angelique, apologies, right? I wanted to show you maybe a software carpentry lesson, just so you can see, just it's slightly different because it's not discipline specific. It's more programmatic software specific lessons. So let's go to programming with R. If we click on that, and I'm just going quickly in here so I can show you the workshop. So software carpentry, remember I said it's not discipline specific, so you're not going to see genomics, you're not going to see ecology, you're not going to see social sciences. We are going to go and we're going to see core lessons in English or Spanish. So those of you who are Spanish speakers, there are translations available. So you can see our core lessons in English consist of Unix shell, version control, programming with Python, plotting and programming in Python, programming with R, and R for reproducible scientific analysis. So let's have a look at that one. What does this look like? And now, again, we start with a summary and setup. What are the prerequisites? How do I download and install the latest version on R? And this is the same for Python. How do I download and install the latest version of Python? Then, if we click next, there's an introduction to RStudio. And this is very important because learning a new software language is already very daunting. And now you're having this big screen in front of you, you have no idea what's going on. And this is, for me, one of the most essential parts of our lessons, is that they break it down. They show you how to do it. They show you also the best practices in naming variables, because some programming languages aren't grammar specific. Some of them are. Like an R, if you get your tenses mixed up, they're not going to care. Maybe Python, they care. I don't know, right? So we need to have this little cheat sheet on how to do that. So again, we remind, download and install the latest version of R here. Always having the latest version of a program is essential. Why should you use R in RStudio? There's an overview. Do you see now we have a screenshot of what it looks like when you open it the first time? And maybe I can give you a bit of a tutorial that under console, it says 4.2.1. Now, RStudio is it's actually a user interface, right? It's a bit of more of a point and clicky type of program. So R slots into RStudio, and what you're seeing on the console here, that is what you are seeing. So these two programs are working together. And in global environment, when you create a new variable, maybe you are measuring hind foot length of an antelope in Tanzania. I don't know, right? I've seen data sets for that. If you create a hind foot length a variable, it will pitch up there. And then here where you see the data folder, all your scripts, all your plots, all your pictures will come up there. So this is typically in a Carpentries workshop where we sit down and we go through. I can get lost in this. I wish I could teach this to you all today. Now, do you see the change that happened here? We have untitled 1, shifting the console a bit down. This is your area where you write your script. So now this is where your script file starts opening up. And if we scroll, see, we have a bit about R scripts, and then how to set up your workflow in RStudio. Introduction to R. How do we use R as a calculator? I can tell you it's much stronger than for analysis than just a calculator. But yes, so this is typical software carpentry, where it moves away from a discipline-specific lesson as per the data carpentry. So let's head back to the slide deck. I just want to make this bigger quickly. There we go. So just to revisit what we chatted about now. Data carpentry is when you have a data set that you want to discriminate, you want to analyze it. And we have discipline-specific lessons, right? Again, these lessons, you can take it and you can practice with it on your own. You can take it to, maybe you are a lecturer where you are based and you want to teach data science and programming to your 4th years or your 3rd years. You can use this curriculum in your classroom. All we ask is you acknowledge the Carpentries and the community members who created the curriculum. So let's say you are in social sciences like me, and you want to teach us to maybe some, let's say, some language students or psychology students, right? social science lesson might be right up your alley. Then we have the library carpentry lessons. Those are for information scientists, for librarians who want to help other researchers with, let's say, regular expressions or how to work with data structures, etc. And then we have software carpentry. I want to create or manipulate the software to work for me and what I'm doing. And here, the two programs that we work with is R or Python. Great stuff. Okay, I'm going to hop on to the next slide. And now, I told you about the Carpentries core curriculum, but we have a Carpentries incubator. And those of you in agriculture or animal sciences, apologies if it's the wrong terminology. I come from psychology. I'm not too familiar. Genomics, I'm getting there, right? Working in the Carpentries. But we have an incubator. As you would incubate maybe eggs, right, to hatch. We have an incubator where community members bring their brand new embryo formed lessons, and we work with them to develop full-fledged chicklings, let's say, right? And the Carpentries Incubator is a place for collaborative development of new lessons. You don't sit there and do it on your own. You come, Toby Hodges, our director of curriculum, has a great team. They all work together and we support each other to create new lessons that we can bring to Africa, right? And this is very important for me. The carpentry community creates, tests, improves the lessons. So as the programming languages updates and the program updates and new features become available, we update our lessons that way as well. So if you want to know more about the Carpentries Incubator, you can chat to me. I have my email later on in the presentation, and I can introduce you to Toby to chat more about how you can get involved. And that's a great segue into our next slide. So Angelique, you told me all about the Carpentries, and you're telling me you have workshops and it's community driven and all these lessons. I want to work through the lessons and I want to teach myself, but maybe afterwards I want to get more involved. How can I get more involved? Let me tell you about that. So you can check out our lessons in your own time. There are workshops being hosted in Africa, many of them online at the moment. So if you go to www.carpentries.org, let me just quickly put this. Oh, I see someone already put it in the chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, and you scroll right. Oh, awesomeness. Thank you so much. You scroll to the bottom, you'll see upcoming workshops. If you would like to attend a Carpentries workshop, you can reach out to the workshop hosts. They're all linked there. And if they are open to the public, you might be able to get a spot there. And they're all in various time zones, right? So maybe it's easier for you to attend after work or early in the morning. You know, that's also a possibility. So you can also sign up for a workshop, as I mentioned. You can help at a workshop. You do not need to be an instructor to help at a workshop. I honestly feel it's a great segue between attending a workshop and becoming an instructor. Being a helper is a great segue. You experienced what it is to attend a Carpentries workshop. You want a better taste, but you're not fully in there yet, and then becoming a Carpentries instructor. You can obviously attend the African Carpentries meetup every 4th Thursday of the month, become an instructor, and after becoming an instructor, you can teach a workshop. You can bring this new pedagogy, and I'm going to chat about the pedagogy in a bit, right? You can teach this new way of teaching data science and programming to your own community and institutions. You can look at lesson maintenance, or whenever these new updates come, and let's say our studio has a new way, a new function or new package that works great. A package is something you add to our studio to do something specific. Let's say I want to analyze depression data in our studio. There might be a psychology package that's made just for the type of analysis I want to do. And also these packages are free. This is what's great about Python, our studio, etc. They are also community developed. They are free to use. We have lesson contributions like the incubator. You can contribute to Glossario and helping us translate these terms. And you can become a trainer and train instructors. So let me move on quickly to instructor training, because I've been talking a lot about that. And you might be a little bit confused by now, so I do apologize if that is the case. So trainers teach basics of educational psychology, evidence-based classroom practice, and how to apply both to teaching. So the Carpentries instructor training is based on what has been tried and tested in educational psychology. Our curriculum doesn't teach you the content of a lesson, but rather teach you how to teach the lessons. And I think that is not just important for being a Carpentries instructor, but if you want to teach other stuff, let's say the material here, you work through that and you pass that and you want to go to intermediate level. Now you can teach intermediate content, and that is absolutely beneficial. Let's say you want to teach, when I was a lecturer, we had to have a different, teaching load. Sometimes I had to teach ethics, and sometimes I had to teach psychology. So that pedagogy of educational psychology practices the Carpentries teaches you can be applied to various disciplines, not just necessarily data science or RStudio or Python, etc. Now, instructor training, what does this entail? It is mostly online, but sometimes is in-person events. It's either 2 days or 4 half days. And there's 3 checkout steps. You can attend a community discussion called a welcome session. You can make a lesson contribution or get involved in any of the steps I mentioned earlier under the Get Involved slide, and do a 5-minute teaching demonstration online. Now, what are the outcomes of, attending instructor training? How do people learn? You learn how people learn. How can we help novices become competent practitioners, right? What is cognitive load and how does it affect learning? How can we create a motivating environment for learners? Because we know if you're not motivated, retention is probably not going to happen of the content you are teaching. And then how do you run your own Carpentries workshop? So these 5 points and a couple more, I couldn't fit them all into one slide. This is what you're learning. So again, I want to repeat that we're not teaching you how to teach the content, but rather we're teaching you how to teach. So let's go. And this is a diagram I spoke about a bit earlier. So we have instructor trainers who then train instructors. And instructors organize or teach workshops to learners, like some of you in the room here today. So I know the terminology might be a bit overwhelming, so I'm going to go over this once again. So you have an instructor trainer who teaches instructors, and the instructors teach at workshops to learners. And now you might ask me now, Angelique, why should I teach at a workshop? We are making the world a better place. We are bringing this information to corners of the world that probably would not know that if we did not share it with everyone, right? Why keep this information to ourselves? That's how I see it. I could not be happier if someone told me more about the Carpentries and say, I taught it in Somalia, or I taught it in Ivory Coast, or I taught it in Tunisia. That would just make my heart just bloom even more when I heard all of that. You can expand your own technical skills. My knowledge of R was very much beginner before I taught my first RStudio lesson. Now I can help myself in making maps. The maps you saw on the presentation, I created it myself. And that's as you progress in my technical skills in R. And I can now I'm far more competent in R than I was back in 2017. You can join a community. The Carpentries has a saying, you never teach alone. You will never teach alone if you teach a Carpentries workshop. We really do encourage co-coding, co-teaching, because it's just rewarding and it's also the most supportive way of teaching. And you get to practice teaching. And I think that's very important. Those of us who are not in teaching disciplines and want to become teachers, they don't get the opportunity to practice. And now, 40 minutes later, I can say you can contact me at Angelique@carpentries.org. And if you have any questions about what I said today, anything that I might have not been clear about, which I apologize in advance, reach out to me. You will have access to the slide deck with all the links embedded in the actual slides. And I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share what I have experienced at the Carpentries and what we are doing in Africa as well. All right. Ibuka, I'm going to hand it over to you. Is that okay?
All right, that's okay. Thank you very much, Angelique, for taking us through all that the Carpentries is doing to, help build the data and coding skills of researchers in Africa. So thank you very much for all that. And then I believe that the members of the audience have learned a lot from what you've told us. And so right away, we're moving straight to the Q&A session, where we're going to be taking questions from each and every one of you. That's those that have questions. But then if you have questions, you can just unmute and ask directly, or first put up your hand, then I'll call you up. So you unmute and then ask directly. But then before we take those who are going to ask directly, we have some already in the Q&A section of this meeting. So I'm just going to read them out while Angelique answers them. So we have the first one here, which says, I'm a higher education instructor at a Ghanaian university with a computer science. That's basically computer vision background. And then his question is, how do I get trained to become an instructor? So can we go with that first, Angelique?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I, for some reason, could not find the unmute button. You would think after a couple of years, we know this by now, right? Thank you so much for the great question. I really appreciate that. So you can reach out to me, Angelique@carpentries.org, and we from time to time have sponsored instructor training seats, and we don't have a time frame. It depends on how many applications we get in, and then we let you know once you can register and join one of our instructor training events. I hope that's not too anticlimax. I said, but send me an email and I will forward you all the information, make sure you get on the right lists, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we have another question, and it says, how long does the training last?
Awesome question, right? So the instructor training can be done in two formats, right? 4 half days, so from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and either 2 full days, then from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then that checkout steps are 3 steps, as I mentioned. The first would be to attend a welcome session. This would be now after the training, right? That's 1 hour session. And then you make a contribution of any kind. So that depends. It can be 2 minutes, it can be 5 hours, however long you want to participate in that. And then a 5-minute teaching demonstration. So just to say that again, you have 2 formats of training. It's 2 half days, 2 full days, apologies, or 4 half days, and then the 3 checkout steps.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe this next question has already been answered by you. It says, how can we access free instructor training? And then it's part of what you said in the first question. So that's Samuel Gesaka. So Samuel, if you're listening, you just reach out to Angelique on her email address. It's visible on the screen right here. So just reach out to her, and then she will guide you on how to access or become an instructor trainer. So I saw somebody putting up his or her hand previously. Was that I didn't catch the name. So if you have questions you want to ask, just simply put up your hand and then I'll call you up. You are mute and then you can ask Angelique directly. Do we have any question from members of the audience? Let me check. I can't see anybody's hand. Does anybody have any question? Okay, in the absence of anyone from the audience, I have a little I'll ask, maybe before they get prepared to ask theirs. So one of the questions I want to ask you is this. Let me thank you again for taking us through this, the things that the Carpentries is doing. So, but let me ask you this question, Angelique. So what I want to ask is, what are some of the most common challenges researchers face when learning coding and data science from your experience? And how does the Carpentries address these challenges?
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. And I want to narrow that down a bit to carpentries in Africa, right? Well, learning data science in Africa. For me, COVID happened, right? And a lot of our workshops went online. And many of us, universities, we went online. We had to start teaching online. And now there's I want to say, a contextual challenge that came up: access to internet, access to hardware, meaning laptops, right? One thing I've learned very, very quickly is that we need to adapt our carpentry's lessons for the African content, our context, apologies. What we have done at the Carpentries, and here's a bunch of blog posts I want to share with you about that quickly. I'm going to put it straight in the chat. Apologies, everyone. Some blog post. It looks a bit funny, but you'll get this. It's 4 blog posts about wins and challenges of running a workshops and learning data science and coding in Africa. And one thing I want to mention is that when we went from in-person workshops, where it's already challenging learning a new language, right? Because we have varying digital literacy levels all over the globe. And we need to take that into account when learning a new programming language or learning how to do statistics, right? I did not have statistics as an undergraduate, not anything other than the basic, what's a mode and what's a mean and what's a standard deviation, right? So I had to teach myself. So that is one thing that's a problem. But when we come into like COVID, where we ran things in an online setting on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet, we're running with bandwidth issues. How do we run workshops on very bad internet? There are some things you can do in Zoom to the data coming in, right? To put that off. You can put your video off. Incoming streaming, you can turn that off as well. Keep your video off. That's one way of doing that. You can use the chat function quite a lot. I know during COVID, we had some funding opportunities available in South Africa to provide mobile data access to individuals attending workshops. So these type of initiatives are in place to bring data science training to individuals where there's these contextual challenges. But now we spoke a bit earlier about cognitive overload. And cognitive overload is it's a real thing when we learn new skills. When I teach, I make sure that for every 50 minutes, we are in a workshop, we take a 10-minute comfort break. It is to make a cup of coffee, grab a glass of water, get a cup of tea, or just take a walk around the room to get the blood flowing, right? Because you can see I'm talking from a psychology perspective here now, right? Get that flowing. The brain needs oxygen. Cognitive overload is a real thing and we need to avoid it. I don't know how many of you in the room have felt Zoom overload. If you sat in a room for 4 to 5 hours on a Zoom call the whole day, taking a regular break is very, very important. I think not just learning a new skill is daunting, but the circumstances and what's doing and that. Is the environment safe? Do you have access to internet, right? South Africa has I want to say, unique situation of load shedding, where you don't know when you're going to have power. You had to deal with that as well. So from an African perspective, we have unique contextual challenges over and above learning a new skill. And the Carpentries also has, it's called a toolkit of ideas. I'm going to share it in the chat for you. It is a toolkit for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility strategies. How can you make your workshop more accessible? And those of you who are lecturers at the moment, these might be great toolkits as well for you to implement in the rooms you are. Learning under normal circumstances, I want to say, or whatever you see as normal, right, is difficult when you're learning a new skill. But when faced with contextual challenges like COVID, lockdown, internet problems, it's already putting your stress levels higher. So the Carpentries has put a lot of things in place, and I wish I could share this all. We just don't have enough time. But hopefully the links will be able to help you. So yes, it's challenging, but there are things we can do, and we have worked hard in setting it up for you. So hopefully it will help you in the future. Thanks so much for the awesome question, Ibuka.
Yeah, thank you, Angelique. We have another question, even as we prepare to round up. We have a number of questions actually, but let's see how we can beat time. So we have one from Father Charles Oyo from Uganda, and he's asking, can the Carpentries facility be used in a purely qualitative research, and how?
That is awesome. I think it's important. It's important for me to say that something like RStudio in Python is not just for quantitative analysis. Qualitative analysis packages exist in Python and in R. So it will teach you how to clean the data still, make sure that the data is in a format to be imported in R or in Python. And then when it comes to the analysis, our incubator has a bunch of up-and-coming lessons on qualitative research. So it's worthwhile to maybe take a look there what they have. What I mean in incubator, they might be in alpha testing phases. So this means they're still in development, and we would love to hear feedback from the community all over the globe, and for me, more importantly so from Africa, to hear, can these lessons be applied in the African context? And if you have any suggestions on those lessons, this is the spot you can see in GitHub where you can make comments and say, I would have changed this and this and this and this. I make this and this suggestion. So I do encourage you to have a look in the incubator, what lessons are available for the various methodologies out there. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. And we have another one. It says, I have graduate students I mentor and supervise who struggle with beginning research and data analysis in general. Do you have a training session or workshop that could boost their confidence and provide them with a foundation?
That's a great question, and I'm grateful that I chose the ecology lesson to showcase you. It depending on what discipline you are. Let's say they are in a natural sciences discipline. I think the data science, ecology, or even the social sciences lesson might be a great way to gently introduce them to that, because as I showcased that these lessons take you step by step. There are activities they can work through with solutions as well. All the data sets are right there. The program to download the links is right there. I do think for me, the data carpentry workshops are really a great way to gently introduce someone into the idea of research and then the analysis around that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And then a number of people from the audience have been asking if the slides and the recordings will be made available. Oh yes, they will be made available on our platform. So look out for that on the Africa platforms, on LinkedIn, and as well as on our website. So we're going to share the links, or the links are already in the chat, but they matter if you can reshare those links again. It's going to be made available on our website and then on our social media platforms as well. So look out for the recordings and also the slide. So I think that's about that for the questions. I can't see any other one from this Q&A section. But then as we have just 5 minutes left, if you feel you still have any other question you would like to ask, we can just use this remaining time to round that up. Does any other person still have time? Any questions to ask? Okay, I believe everything is clear then, because I can't see any other question. Okay, I think in the absence of any other question, okay, Father Charles is asking, can you help us know the payments?
I have good news for you that using this information is free to use for anyone. You can work through the information all on your own for free. Attending a workshop, generally, many of our workshop hosts do not charge a fee. So as I mentioned, if we go to www.carpentries.org, and there are a bunch of workshops listed, you can reach out to the workshop hosts and ask them, is there open spot for you to attend? And many of them might have it free for everyone. But I cannot guarantee that is the case, but the materials are free to use for anyone because it's Creative Commons licensed.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's about the number of questions we have. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us in this webinar session, especially our guest, Dr. Angelique Trusler, for taking out time to answer all the questions that we asked and then giving us insights as to what the Carpentries do and how they are helping to empower researchers in Africa. Like I said previously, the recording of this session and the slide will be made available on our website and our social media platforms. So be on the lookout for that either tomorrow or next. It's going to be made available. So you can also get the full details and register for this ongoing webinar session on our website. Like I said previously, I'm going to drop the link in the chat there. All right. So this webinar series is co-organized by UbuntuNet Alliance and Access to Perspectives as part of the ORCID Global Participation Program. So our speaker today has been Dr. Angelique Trusler, and she has been speaking on the topic, Empowering African Researchers, Building Data and Coding Skills with the Carpentries. And I hope you've learned a lot from all she has said today. So thank you once again for joining us. And then we're going to have, many more wonderful and exciting webinar sessions in the coming months. So be on the lookout for those. And then our next webinar session will be on the 24th of October, 2024 this year at 11 a.m. West African time, 12 p.m. Central African time, and 1 p.m. East African time. And then that session will be with Ina Smith, who is going to be coming in as our guest. And then Ina Smith is the Doage Ambassador for Southern Africa. So as you've made out time to join us today in this webinar session, please do well to join us in the upcoming one. And thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to our guests, and bye-bye from here. Thank you.